The cafeteria was buzzing with noise, but when Emily stepped inside, it felt like every sound twisted against her. A carton of milk slipped from her tray and splashed across the floor. Instantly, laughter erupted. "Careful, thrift store girl. Don't drown in your free lunch," a voice shouted. The rich girls at the corner table were already grinning. Phones lifted to capture the moment. One of them whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "She probably saved up all week for that milk." Their laughter echoed, sharp and cruel. Emily froze. Her shoes were wet, her cheeks burning, but she forced herself not to cry. She knelt down to clean the mess with a napkin, her fingers trembling. No one helped. No one ever did. If you've ever felt overlooked or mocked for what you didn't have, stay with this story until the end. And if you believe no one should be shamed for being poor, subscribe, like this video, and share it, because voices like Emily's deserve to be heard. Emily stood up, the napkin shredded in her hands. Her uniform skirt was damp and smelled faintly of spoiled milk. Around her, students whispered and snickered. A boy from the soccer team walked past, muttering, "Pathetic." She stared at the floor until the janitor shuffled over, pushing his mop. He gave her a sympathetic glance, but didn't speak. Emily whispered, "I'm sorry," as if the mess was her fault. She hurried to a corner table, dropped her tray, and tried to eat, but every bite felt like chewing glass. Across the room, three girls, Jessica, Lauren, and Chloe, leaned together, watching her. Jessica was the leader, her blonde hair perfectly curled. Designer bag perched on the table like a trophy. Lauren giggled. "She looks like a charity case." Chloe smirked. "Maybe we should start a fundraiser. Buy Emily a decent pair of shoes." The whole group laughed again, loud and deliberate. Emily clenched her fork until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to disappear, but instead she forced herself to swallow. When the bell rang, relief washed over her. But relief never lasted. In the hallway, Jessica accidentally knocked Emily's books from her hands. Papers scattered across the floor. "Oops, guess gravity doesn't like the poor either," Jessica said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Students walked around Emily without stopping. She gathered her notebooks, hands shaking, until she realized someone was watching from the end of the hall. A boy leaned against the lockers, arms crossed. His eyes followed Jessica, then turned back to Emily. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He just stared, quiet and unreadable. Emily didn't know his name. She didn't care. What mattered was that for one brief second, someone had seen everything. The cruelty, the humiliation, the way she kept her head down and carried on. And that look, heavy and unblinking, made her wonder if maybe this time, things wouldn't just fade into silence. By the time she reached math class, the whispers had followed her. A folded note landed on her desk. "Need lunch money? We can spare a quarter." Emily's throat tightened, but she refused to give them the reaction they wanted. She pressed her pencil harder into the page, solving equations she couldn't even see clearly through the blur in her eyes. Outside the classroom window, the sky was heavy with gray clouds. She imagined rain pouring down, washing everything clean. The laughter, the whispers, the sting of being less. For now, though, all she had was silence and the quiet promise that she wouldn't let them break her. Her day had only begun. At home, the silence was different. It wasn't cruel. It was heavy, filled with the hum of an old refrigerator and the muffled sounds of traffic outside the thin walls. Emily dropped her backpack by the door, the zipper frayed, one strap hanging by a loose thread. Her mother's voice called from the kitchen, tired but gentle. "Emily, can you help me for a second?" She walked in to find her mom standing over a small pile of laundry, folding shirts with sleeves stretched thin. The fluorescent light flickered above them. and Emily noticed how pale her mother's hands looked, veins showing beneath the skin. She'd just come back from her morning shift at the diner and would leave soon for the evening job at the grocery store. "Of course," Emily said, picking up a pair of jeans that had seen too many washes. Her mother smiled faintly. "You holding up okay at school?" Emily hesitated. The truth sat at the edge of her tongue, sharp and painful, but she swallowed it back. "It's fine," she whispered. Her mother studied her for a moment, as if she could see the cracks Emily tried to hide. But she didn't push. Instead, she smoothed out the fabric and placed it neatly on the pile. In the next room, Emily's little brother, Daniel, was sprawled on the floor, coloring on sheets of scrap paper. He looked up with a wide grin. Look, I drew your school." His drawing was crooked, windows lopsided, but in the middle he'd written her name in big block letters. She forced a smile and sat beside him, ruffling his hair. "Looks better than the real thing," she said softly. Daniel laughed, not understanding the weight of her words. For him, the world was still simple. Emily wanted to protect that for as long as she could. Later, as they ate dinner, macaroni with barely enough cheese to stretch, the lights flickered again. Emily stared at her bowl, hearing her mother hum softly to fill the silence. Across the table, Daniel chattered about a superhero comic he'd borrowed from the library. Emily listened, nodding, pretending not to notice the exhaustion in her mother's eyes. After dishes, she retreated to her room. The walls were bare, except for a single taped-up photograph of her family from 2 years ago, when her dad was still around. She lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the laughter that haunted her in the cafeteria, the note in math class, Jessica's smirk. She opened her notebook, the one she used not for schoolwork, but for thoughts she couldn't share. On the first page, she had written, "Don't let them see you break." Her pen hovered, then scratched across the page. "One day, they'll see me differently." She closed the notebook quickly when Daniel knocked and peeked in. "Can you help me with my reading?" he asked, holding a book almost as big as his arms. Emily nodded, setting her own pain aside. She read with him until his eyelids grew heavy, until his small head rested against her shoulder. When he finally drifted to sleep, she tucked him in, brushing his hair back with a tenderness she wished someone would show her. Standing in the doorway, she glanced back at him. He was the reason she couldn't give up. The reason she had to keep walking into that school every morning, no matter what they said, no matter how much it hurt. And somewhere deep inside, she felt it, a quiet strength, waiting. The next morning, Emily walked into school with her head down, clutching her worn-out backpack like a shield. The halls buzzed with chatter, and already whispers trailed after her. Jessica and her friends were waiting by the lockers, perfectly timed like predators who knew their prey's routine. "Look who finally decided to show up," Jessica said loudly, flipping her glossy hair. "Emily, did you manage to wash that thrift store skirt? Or is it still vintage dirt chic?" Laughter followed, sharp and practiced. Lauren stepped closer, pretending to inspect Emily's shoes. "Wow, are those cracks? I didn't know Goodwill sold antiques." Chloe added with a smirk, "Maybe we should take up a collection. I mean, what's a few bucks for charity?" Emily's hands tightened on the straps of her backpack. She wanted to scream, to run, to fight back. But she stayed silent. She crouched down to open her locker, focusing on the metal door, her heart hammering. A crowd was forming. Phones were out. She could feel the lenses on her, capturing every second. Jessica wasn't done. She pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of Emily crouched on the floor. "Perfect," she said, already typing a caption. "Everyone should know how sad this is." The words hit like knives. Emily swallowed hard, refusing to let the tears rise. She stacked her books in her arms, stood up slowly. and walked away without a word. But the cruelty didn't stop there. By lunchtime, a new post was spreading online. A picture of Emily bent at her locker with the caption, "She calls this a fashion statement. We call it poverty chic." Laughter followed her into the cafeteria, into every hallway, into every corner of the school. At the lunch table, a group of students snickered as she sat alone. Someone tossed a penny onto her tray. "There you go," a boy joked, "towards a real meal." Her stomach twisted, but she didn't touch the food. She stared at the penny instead, small and shiny against the plastic tray. She wanted to hurl it back, to make them all stop, but she couldn't. Her chest felt too tight, her throat too closed. Jessica passed by loud enough for everyone to hear. "Smile, Emily. We made you famous. Aren't you grateful?" For a moment, Emily thought she might break. But then she felt it again. That stare. The boy from yesterday. He was across the cafeteria watching her. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes were locked on Jessica, then back on her. He didn't laugh. He didn't film. He just saw. Emily forced herself to breathe, gripping the edge of her tray. The laughter still rang in her ears, the whispers still cut deep. But she stayed upright. She wouldn't give them the victory of watching her crumble. Not yet. The week of humiliation, built toward the school's annual talent showcase. Posters lined the hallways, bright colors, bold letters, promises of prizes and recognition. For most students, it was just another chance to show off. For Emily, it was something else entirely. She hadn't signed up, hadn't planned to. But her teacher, Mrs. Carter, had noticed her sketches one afternoon when Emily accidentally left her notebook open on the desk. "These are remarkable," Mrs. Carter had said softly, turning the pages. "You should enter them." Emily had shaken her head quickly. "No, they'll just laugh at me." But Mrs. Carter's gaze was steady. Sometimes the things we hide are exactly what the world needs to see. Emily had thought about those words every night, staring at the ceiling, hearing the cruel laughter echo in her memory. And on the morning of the showcase, she made a decision. Her name appeared at the bottom of the program, penciled in so late, it almost seemed like an afterthought. When her turn came, the auditorium was restless. Whispers spread as she walked on stage, carrying nothing but a sketch pad. Jessica smirked in the front row, already raising her phone to record the disaster. "This is going to be good," she whispered to Lauren. Emily stood there, hands trembling, her voice quiet but steady. I don't sing, I don't dance, but I draw." Snickers rippled through the audience. She flipped the sketch pad. The first page revealed a charcoal drawing of the school courtyard, detailed down to the cracks in the pavement and the faded paint on the benches. Gasps scattered through the crowd. She turned another page, a portrait of Mrs. Carter, captured with such depth it looked alive. Another page. The cafeteria, every student rendered with precision. The room grew quieter with each turn. By the time she reached the final drawing, the air was still. It was a portrait of her little brother, Daniel, his smile wide, his eyes bright, innocence radiating from the page. Beneath it, in faint pencil, she had written, "For him, I stay strong." For a moment, no one moved. Then, unexpectedly, applause began. Not loud, not overwhelming at first, but real. It spread through the auditorium like a wave. Even some who had laughed at her yesterday were clapping now. Jessica's phone wavered in her hand. She glanced around, realizing the mood had shifted. Her smirk faltered. Emily bowed her head slightly, clutching the sketchpad to her chest. Her heart was racing, her hands were still shaking. But for the first time, the laughter wasn't louder than her voice. And in the back row, the boy who had been watching her all week finally allowed the faintest smile to appear. The week of humiliation, built toward the school's annual talent showcase. Posters lined the hallways, bright colors, bold letters, promises of prizes and recognition. For most students, it was just another chance to show off. For Emily, it was something else entirely. She hadn't signed up, hadn't planned to. But her teacher, Mrs. Carter, had noticed her sketches one afternoon when Emily accidentally left her notebook open on the desk. "These are remarkable," Mrs. Carter had said softly, turning the pages. "You should enter them." Emily had shaken her head quickly. "No, they'll just laugh at me." But Mrs. Carter's gaze was steady. Sometimes the things we hide are exactly what the world needs to see. Emily had thought about those words every night, staring at the ceiling, hearing the cruel laughter echo in her memory. And on the morning of the showcase, she made a decision. Her name appeared at the bottom of the program, penciled in so late it almost seemed like an afterthought. When her turn came, the auditorium was restless. Whispers spread as she walked on stage, carrying nothing but a sketch pad. Jessica smirked in the front row, already raising her phone to record the disaster. "This is going to be good," she whispered to Lauren. Emily stood there, hands trembling, her voice quiet but steady. I don't sing, I don't dance, but I draw." Snickers rippled through the audience. She flipped the sketch pad. The first page revealed a charcoal drawing of the school courtyard, detailed down to the cracks in the pavement and the faded paint on the benches. Gasps scattered through the crowd. She turned another page, a portrait of Mrs. Carter, captured with such depth it looked alive. Another page. The cafeteria, every student rendered with precision. The room grew quieter with each turn. By the time she reached the final drawing, the air was still. It was a portrait of her little brother, Daniel, his smile wide, his eyes bright, innocence radiating from the page. Beneath it, in faint pencil, she had written, "For him, I stay strong." For a moment, no one moved. Then, unexpectedly, applause began. Not loud, not overwhelming at first, but real. It spread through the auditorium like a wave. Even some who had laughed at her yesterday were clapping now. Jessica's phone wavered in her hand. She glanced around, realizing the mood had shifted. Her smirk faltered. Emily bowed her head slightly, clutching the sketchpad to her chest. Her heart was racing, her hands were still shaking. But for the first time, the laughter wasn't louder than her voice. And in the back row, the boy who had been watching her all week finally allowed the faintest smile to appear. Friday came with a storm outside, wind lashing against the windows, rain hammering the roof of the school. Inside, though, the real storm was brewing in the cafeteria. Jessica wasn't finished. She and her friends had planned their grand finale. A group chat had been buzzing all night, spreading the idea. Prank Emily in front of everyone, record it, and kill her newfound fame. At lunch, Emily sat quietly at her corner table, sketchbook open. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was drawing right there, pencil moving swiftly, shading in the contours of the storm outside the window. A few students gathered near her, curious, respectful. The room felt different, almost safer. Then Jessica struck. She strutted across the room, holding a soda can. "Hey, artist girl," she sneered. "Here's some color for your sketches." Before Emily could react, Jessica tilted the can and poured it straight over her notebook. Red soda splashed across the pages, smearing ink, soaking the paper. Gasps rippled through the cafeteria. Emily froze. Her heart plummeted as the drawings, her brother's smile, her teacher's portrait, every line she had poured herself into, bled into ruin. For a moment, silence reigned. Then Jessica laughed. "Oops, guess your talent just washed away." Lauren and Chloe snickered behind her, phones ready. But this time, the crowd didn't join in. A boy's voice cut through the silence. calm, steady, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think that makes you strong?" It was him, the boy who had been watching all along. He stepped forward, eyes fixed on Jessica. "All you've proven is that you're terrified of her." Murmurs erupted, heads nodded. Someone muttered, "She went too far." Another added, "That's messed up." Jessica's smirk faltered as students began turning their phones away from Emily and toward her instead. The spotlight had shifted. For the first time, she wasn't the one in control. Emily stood slowly, her ruined sketchbook dripping red onto the floor. Her voice trembled at first, but she didn't hide. "You can destroy my drawings," she said, looking Jessica straight in the eye. "But you can't destroy me." The room erupted, not in laughter, but in applause. Loud, real, undeniable. Jessica's face turned pale as she realized the truth. The more she tried to break Emily, the stronger Emily became in everyone's eyes. And Emily, standing in the middle of it all, felt something she hadn't felt in years: pride.